Hello everyone, welcome to the Nordic Media Festival. My name is Christian Bruarøy and I'm hosting this session. This is a session that looks into Turkey. The conditions for journalists in Turkey are serious. Around 30 prisoners and journalists are imprisoned, and recently the number was the double. Press freedom is not as we see here in the Nordics, and still we are talking about Europe. With us today we have journalist Yavuz Baydar. He is one of the founders of Platform for Independent Journalism. He's a columnist for today's Zaman in his home country and one of Huffington Post bloggers. To moderate this session, we have correspondent from Aftenposten in the Middle East and the winner of den store journalistprisen, Kristin Solberg. Please welcome.
In March, Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdoğan closed down Twitter after documents and audio files documenting corruption in his inner circle were being shared in the social networking site. Erdoğan claimed these were lies and accusations, so he used his power to close down Twitter. The week after, and a few days before the local election in the country, Anette Groth from NRK's Urix made this clip. Please take a look.
De forsøker å komme seg inn på Twitter. Det er et døgn siden statsminister Tayyip Erdoğan sa han skulle stenge hele nettstedet, og han holdt ord. Erdoğan forsøkte først å få slettet negative opplysninger om seg selv fra Twitter. Da det ikke gikk, fikk han en domstol med seg på å stenge alt.
Maalesef dün gece Twitter kapattılar. Bunu hükümetin tüm Türk vatandaşlarının insan haklarına bir saldırısı olarak görüyorum. Kişisel insan özgürlüklerine hükümetin saldırmaması gerektiğini düşünüyorum.
Det hele startet før jul i fjor, da en rekke personer knyttet til Erdoğans maktapparat ble arrestert og siktet blant annet for korrupsjon. Erdoğan sier at dette er et komplott mot hans regjering, ledet av en imam som lever i eksil i USA. Og Erdoğan svarte på nyåret med å avsette en rekke sentrale personer i rettsvesenet. Det er Tyrkias Twitter-brukere det går utover. For på Twitter har det vært lagt ut beskyldninger om korrupsjon mot Erdoğan. Men Tyrkias twitterere har ikke tenkt å gi seg.
Twitter'ı uzun zamandır kullanıyorum. Biliyorsunuz Twitter kapatıldı. İnsanlar görüşlerini veya olaylara tepkilerini oradan daha çok belirtiyordu. Sanki Twitter kapanınca olaylara tepki gösteremeyeceğimizi düşünüyor ama mücadeleye devam, biliyorsunuz. Kapatsa da bir şey değişmeyecek ve kapatamayacağını düşünüyorum. O kadar kullanıcı.
Presidenten Abdullah Gül har også en Twitter-konto. Der har han, selv om han er partifelle med Erdoğan, tatt avstand fra stengingen. Og opposisjonen i Tyrkia vil ha Twitter-forbudet prøvet i retten.
İsteseler de açacaklar, istemeseler de açacaklar. Türkiye dünyada ayıplı bir ülke haline gelmiştir. Tüm dünyadan, medeni bütün dünyadan Türkiye'ye kınama mesajları ve Türkiye'yi ne yazık ki insan hakları alanında yerle bir eden açıklamalar gelmektedir. Bütün bunları iktidarın bu haksız uygulamalarını elimizin tersine itmek ve haklı mücadelemize tüm yurttaşlarımızın adına bu mücadeleyi vermek için Cumhuriyet Halk Partisi olarak bugün bu itiraz hakkımızı kullanıyoruz.
Det er valgkamp før lokalvalget på søndag, og statsminister Tayyip Erdoğan fortsetter ufortrøden.
Şu çıkacak, bu çıkacak. Şunu yayınlayacağız.
Kritikken mot ham etter stengningen av internett tar han ingen hensyn til.
Benim milletime saldıranlara karşı biz tavır almayacak mıyız? Siz bize bu ehliyeti vermediniz mi? Bu vekaleti bunun için vermediniz mi?
So Yavuz, this was of course not only Twitter, it was also YouTube.
Right.
What's going on?
Well, there's an attack into internet freedom which intensified in the past 4 months. Internet law dating back to 2007 was already problematic enough. the AKP party put the word obscenity instead of pornography in the law, which meant that the word obscenity was so broad that anything could be banned. Also, there's another law. This opposition is not clean. They inserted a law, reference to a law regarding the defamation of Atatürk's memory, which could be used in any context. So we end up now with 35,000 internet websites whose access is banned. In addition to that, in March, as you said, Twitter was banned. And soon after, YouTube was banned. This was because the corruption allegations, all the audio leaks, the wiretapped, most of whom were legal wiretappings in relation to the graft probe, was channeled through Twitter to YouTube, which was the pool that all you could see. Also, Vimeo was used, and BuzzFeed, etc., but mainly it was YouTube. So governments became frightened to death to see that public was having access to these audio leaks, which were about plus 70 plus numbers, various things. So now, of course, Twitter, as soon as it was banned, the Turks, who are very tech savvy, found ways to go around it in terms of hours. Also, the authorities were not sufficiently clever about banning the Twitter. They had forgotten to close down mobile Twitter.
So you could still access Twitter from your smartphone?
Exactly. As soon as you downloaded Opera Mini or something. So in terms of hours, Twitter ban was there. Certainly, main bulks of the rural people did not know so much. Explorer finders on Microsoft was difficult, but those others, iOS applications were completely open. They could not do anything about this. The same applies to YouTube. Practically, YouTube is banned in Turkey right now, but iPhone, iPads, Android users it's open. So it's a gray area. It's a very complicated, kind of funny situation, but nevertheless, it's a serious situation.
Absolutely, and they're not being very smart about it. But this was, of course, a symptom of a greater problem in Turkish media. We've seen, of course, the jailing of journalists previously, and the space for press freedom has kind of gradually decreased or gradually diminished in the last few years. Can you tell me a little bit about what's going on and what's the reason for this?
The main reason is, first of all, that is the underlying reason. The culture of intolerance in Turkish political class is endemic. It's been going on for decades. About 85% of the parliament is gripped by this culture of intolerance, for dissent, for critique, including the opposition. And that has played out in the legislations very clearly. In some terms, they cooperated in restricting freedom of expression and freedom of the media. Second, the AKP party, beginning in a very reformistic spirit in early 2000, became unhappy with the reforms that it had done. And since about 2 years ago, it has been now fighting against all the institutions and reforms it has accomplished. It's a very interesting situation. A transformational party now becoming more and more a statist party for the party of the state, becoming more conservative in a sense that it is against freedoms and rights. So this plays out again on the media. In order to be more arbitrary, more authoritarian, it is now attacking fourth estate, the media, since about 2011, and also the third estate, which is now the judiciary. The rule of law is being shaken.
Absolutely, but also one of the problems seems to be media ownership and business interests in Turkish media. Conglomerates owning other business and have vital business interests with the government.
Yes. There are two aspects. Usually when we evaluate a situation of media in any country, we apply 4 criteria. One is pluralism. Second is the safety, which is about harassment and killings and arrests. Third is freedom, and fourth is independence. What you ask is about the independence criteria, which is the most serious problem in Turkish media now. ownership issues have become so gangrenous that any government, including this one, cut what I call unholy alliances with the media moguls who control main bulk of the media, but also are owners of various sectors like, let's say, tourism, construction, automotives, banking, telecommunications, and more importantly, energy. And they, through these unholy alliances, get a lot of lucrative contracts from the governments, which means that they put their media outlets in the service of the power, political power. This is a game that has been going on for a long time. Of course, what it damages is the very spirit of journalism, our social role as public informers, people in the service of the public. And also it damages the democratic debate that Turkey needs, because it's been negotiating with the European Union. It has come out of the tunnel, and it is now facing a lot of issues with Kurdish issue, with taboos like Armenian taboo, minority issues, non-Muslims, etc., and also reconciliation with the past. As soon as you, now the game is that everything is in the main bulk of the media, more or less under the control of what the government wants that media to say to the public. And the most important aspect of journalism in Turkey today is not about opinion. There are hundreds of opinion columns, but opinion is not journalism. News production and news dissemination is journalism. What it is damaged of is investigative journalism, coverage of corruption, coverage of abuse of power, and proper coverage of human rights violations. Those are the aspects that suffer. So when we speak about press freedom issues in Turkey, on the level of independence, we speak about lack of editorial independence, and we speak about lack of proper news story publication. That is the most serious thing, because public has been kept away from news. That's why public is now seeking itself to various alternative news sources like social media, internet, etc.
Absolutely, and we'll get back a little bit towards the end about the important role of social media and internet platforms. But here, is it the editors themselves who are kind of telling the journalists, you know, you can't write about this, or the journalists, they kind of know the red lines themselves and they don't dare to approach those stories, or what is it?
The system works, to make it simple for you, which is a very different situation than the one in Scandinavia or in Germany or UK. In UK, you had this similarities with the Murdoch story.
Absolutely.
But in other countries, and similar to Italy as well, in a way, that a media mogul who is very greedy, which sees only money, money, money, and gets in contact with the government, and this is going through public procurement, public tenders, usually under the control of the government. And in order to be able to appeasing to the government, they appoint puppet editors. They buy their freedom, and they buy these people's independence with high salaries, extremely high salaries. We are speaking about $50,000, $70,000 per month, even more. And these people, of course, become volunteers of self-censorship, and they control the newsrooms. Newsrooms, as I expressed in last year's speech in European Commission in Brussels, have become open-air prisons in Turkey, in the main bulk of the media. Of course, you have partisan press, you have leftist newspapers, etc. We have 40 newspapers, by the way. But what we are speaking about is the traditional papers, Milliyet, Vatan, Hürriyet, Sabah, etc. And those are the big circulation papers. And the newsrooms have become not the centers of, choosing what is the important story, what are the news stories with the news value. Instead, they are, how can we block this story? How can we stop this story? How can we go around this? How can we distort this story type of discussions? And I have witnessed this pretty much in my time. And of course, this is a shame for journalism. But The situation is made worse because of the fact that out of the 14,000 journalists operational in Turkey, we have about 14, 15,000 with press cards, most of them. Then those who are members of any trade union with collective rights is only 1%, according to Reporters Sans Frontières, which means big tragedy because you are deprived of your collective rights, which means employer can fire you arbitrarily any day and put you out on the street. And this means fear of losing the job. This means fear of having the family suddenly in a big economic crisis. Fear of losing the job means fear of daring to defend the values of journalism in the institutions. That fear means lack of editorial independence. That is the main reason that it is becoming now very acute.
And what about the journalists who are fired? Are they able to find other jobs?
No, they cannot. I have never seen a clear example of. We had approximately 250 journalists since March last year, approximately 12, 13 months. Those are the ones that got fired because they, one way or another, defended the values of journalism. And that was a professional resistance that led to main conglomerates firing editors, a couple of chief editors, columnists, photographers, reporters, etc. They cannot get, the issue is not only are they being fired, but they are branded as troublemakers, and they cannot be hired by other employers because other employers are so afraid of hiring somebody. As soon as you hire somebody like that, you make a statement to the powers that you are defying what the powers want with the media. So it's a very, it's a vicious cycle, and it's, of course, it scares the other people. And they see that, oh, that one has got fired and is out there, so I should stick to my chair and I should come to the work every day and do what I'm told.
Exactly. And this leads me to the Gezi Park protest, if we could have the pictures here, because the problem in the Turkish media really surfaced in the Gezi Park protests last summer, didn't it? And that's when there were huge protests in the streets of Istanbul, but the media just weren't covering it. In one instance, they were showing a documentary about penguins instead of showing what was going on in the streets of Istanbul.
Yes, this has been the breaking point, and this illustrates what I've been telling you as an output of the system that works, sort of sick system. Before the Gezi, about at the turning point of 2011, 2012, there was the first foreplay, if you like, of the big censorship, when 34 Kurdish villagers were killed by the Turkish fighter jets, December 2011. Turkish mainstream media again covered up, blacked out completely those killings. And we could only find out about this through Twitter and social media that night. But it took Turkish mainstream media 18 hours before they could start reporting on the story. After the declaration of the governor, they waited for the statement of the governor. But we already knew that this had happened. So this was the first trial, I think, that showed Erdoğan that he could control the media. So some months pass, and we end up in this one, which went on about 3 weeks. Urban protests, not only in Istanbul, but also spread to 79 out of 81 Turkish provinces. Big. I mean, in small scale in some cities, but bigger scale in various other cities. So this was a widespread urban protest, urban unrest wave, which was nothing else than social and cultural resistance to what they perceived as intrusion in the lifestyle and political engineering and social engineering of Mr. Erdoğan. So at that night, when Taksim Square became a gas chamber, more or less, and with water cannons and gas, many news channels in the mainstream were ignoring the story. We have, by the way, the world record of news channels, 19 of them, private news channels. This is crazy. This is ridiculous because none of them go with the profit. Nevertheless, Penguins was CNN Turk story all night, and I was, zipping that night. I was this has gone mad, I thought. And the second channel, the rival channel, was showing live the medicine program about schizophrenia.
How fitting.
Perfect description of the state of Turkish media. And what made, I think, the schizophrenia program interesting, and I was tweeting that night when mocking them, it was, the epicenter of the protests were just 2 blocks away from the headquarters of Haberturk, which was airing schizophrenia. Only 2 blocks away. I mean, if they had opened the windows, they would have got the gas in the studio. So this was the breaking point. And of course, at that time, and we may come back to that story, I was covering a lot of, as ombudsman, of how the coverage was going, and it was going completely crazy, down the drain. And day after, something interesting happened. When this is important because these people, not only the youngsters, I mean, this is mainly a youth protest, and very diverse youth protest. It includes radical Islamists as well. They are against corruption. That's why they protested there. And people started to realize, aha, there's something wrong with the Turkish media, which we had been writing about for years. The interesting part is that suddenly the elite of Turkey, the urban elite of Turkey, which tends to be ignorant of minority problems, human rights violations, realized their sons and daughters are not covered. What they went through, the harassment and beatings and etc., said there is something wrong with the Turkish realization suddenly, and that led to a lot of protests to these news outlets, and the social unrest happened in terms of people, mainly rich Istanbulis, went to the bank owned by the same owner of the NTV television channel and emptied the accounts and in protest. So we are talking about account emptying of about $90 million. So this was a big shock for the bank. And I think it showed that people could do something about the concentration of media ownership. And this went on for weeks. As a result, though, firing started en masse. In NTV channel, people rebelled, chief editor resigned, and Haberturk was in turmoil. People were crying inside these news outlets, the reporters. There was a trauma, but it didn't change the pattern that people continued to be fired. And it went on until today.
And you were amongst the journalists who were fired at that time. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened in those days and weeks when you were trying to, you were first censored and then fired from, you were the news ombudsman, readers ombudsman for the daily Sabah newspaper?
Right. It was, of course, my position was different. I was an independent ombudsman, news ombudsman, employed by Daily Sabah with a very separate contract, very strong contract, which guaranteed, well, I suppose so, my independence. And I was covering, of course, I was focusing on how the newspaper managed or failed to cover these protests. And I wrote a very critical article based on reader reactions of Sabah, which is a newspaper of 350,000 circulation, with a very diverse readership, Kurds, seculars, rurals, urbans, etc., young mainly, and reformist, supposedly reformist paper. It had become more and more influenced by, eclipsed by the powers. And my first article was printed, but it was very critical in its content. And I was warned by the management that I should stop being critical of the newspaper. And this was the second time I received such a threat. And I gave them the answer that as an independent ombudsman, I will continue to do what my job description tells me. Made it very clear to them. And the next article was about another interesting aspect. Turkish media in general, in the heat of these protests, started demonizing the international news organizations, because CNN Turk, Al Jazeera, BBC, Deutsche Welle, Der Spiegel, etc., were covering these very systematically, regularly, and it caused a lot of anger with the government. But the Turkish media followed suit and joined the protests on the government side, attacking the international press. And Turkish daily Sabah, which I was the ombudsman of, as soon as they started being critical of, in that manner, demonization, or joined the demonizations, another thing was our Turkish colleagues, young reporters, working for these international organizations, were also being openly targeted as collaborators, spies, etc. And I took that in the article as well. That article was making the point that it's dangerous to be hostile to international media, and that was censored. That was without any explanation, and that was in the middle of June approximately. And I had to take a leave because this was a very dramatic situation. An independent ombudsman, not only the editors, not only reporters, being censored was unique, and it had not happened before. And I took a leave, and that time, New York Times got in touch with me from the op-ed section. I knew some people there. They said, if you want to write an article, because this is very dramatic, we can do that. And I said, I will think about it. And I took a leave abroad, and then I decided to write the article because I considered that my following articles for Sabah would be censored anyway. This was a very poisonous environment, which it did. And my article was already sent to New York Times, but it was postponed because Egypt happened in July. It was supposed to be apparently in July. So when it came, the New York Times article, it landed like a bombshell in Turkey because somebody with writing and saying the king is naked is not enjoyed. So I was targeted as savage marauder in the side of the Gezi protesters now, complaining about Turkish situation to the world, etc. But I was fired in the end. And my firing paper says, you are fired because you wrote an article in New York Times.
It actually says. Mm-hmm. They do admit it, huh?
Yeah. That's a case now for the courts, so I will not speak more about that.
Fine. We have also a few examples of
this is, the weapon now is the irony.
Yeah.
All these satirical newspapers and, of course, the boys and girls in the social media do all these things. This is supposed to be, Obama just having heard the news that Erdoğan was not that successful in closing down Twitter and YouTube. That says, oh, he couldn't shut it down? So
we have another one.
We have another one. This is, I was just having a conversation 2 months ago with some kids on Twitter. We exchanged ideas, and I said, and the conversation led to, I just said, yes, we ban, and they were laughing, laughing marks, etc. And one of those kids did this and sent it to the entire social media, so it became rather famous, yes, we ban. Anyway, yeah, we have the film, I think.
Absolutely. Huh? So, could you play the film? This is a clip that it's from Freedom House. They issued a special report on this media crisis in Turkey. It's called Democracy in Crisis: Corruption, Media and Power in Turkey. And they also made this video clip in which you and other journalists take part.
We have 4 copies, by the way, there of the report.
Yeah, if anyone would like the report afterwards, it's right there. But the clip, if you please take a look, this is you and a few other Turkish journalists explaining the situation and the pressures that they are facing.
Uluslararası medya, bunu da gizleyin, olur mu?
Hadi bakalım BBC bunu da gizle. CNN bunu da gizle. Reuters bunu da gizle. Günlerdir yalan haberler ürettiniz. Türkiye'yi dünyaya farklı gösterdiniz. Siz yalanlarınızla baş başa kaldınız.
17 Aralık'ta Türkiye'de önemli bir yolsuzluk operasyonu başladı. Ve bir hafta sonra da 25 Aralık'ta bu operasyonun ikincisi yapıldı. Ve ben de aynı gün bir televizyon programına davet edildim. Hükümetin paralel yapı ya da cemaat her neyse öyle bir yapıyla ancak bir hukuk içinde mücadele edebilir. Yani gerekçeleri varsa, nasıl bir ağ varsa bunu ancak hukukla kanıtlayarak bunları tasfiye edebilir. Ertesi gün gazeteye gittim. Yazı günümdü. Yazımı yazdım, yolladım. Beni 5.30'da aradılar. Yazını girmeyeceğiz dediler. Neden diye sordum yazı işleri müdürüne. Özellikle dün televizyon programında, yani Cüneyt Özdemir'in programında söylediklerim yüzünden.
I was working as news ombudsman, independent news ombudsman for Sabah Daily, and I was criticizing the newspaper for its flawed coverage of the Gezi Park events. And my second article, again continuing to criticize the newspaper, was censored by the editor. And after that, after a couple of days, I was told that I was fired.
Especially for the last couple of years, I started being very critical of the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's policies on media, especially on democracy, on the rule of law.
Neymiş? Gazetecilik yapıyorlarmış. Eğer böyle gazetecilik yapacaksan batsın senin bu gazeteciliğin.
And I lost my job, my column, I could say.
Basın özgürlüğünden çok sadece pozisyon ağırlığına göre, yani güç dengesi neredeyse oraya göre pozisyon olan medya var Türkiye'de.
This newspaper has been taken over by a company whose CEO is the son-in-law of Prime Minister. And we have all known all along that the editorial independence of the newspaper was under increasing threat of political executive, and it became apparent, particularly during the year of 2013, that it was being interfered in the content.
Medya sahipleri holdingler ya da başka işler yaptığı sürece ve yaptıkları işler de bir tür devlete bağlı olduğu sürece özgür bir medyanın olma şansı yok.
Both on the aspects of freedom and independence, Turkish media is undergoing its most dramatic and tragic period. It is suffocating, it is in shackles, it's unable to serve its social role as the informer of the public and becoming and continuing to be the forum of free debate.
I will continue on the online newspaper, writing in the online newspaper of T24.
The only way remaining for us, journalists in Turkey, is the domain of internet. So that's where we are operating, that's we are trying to expand and be vocal and be visible. Yeah.
Could we go back to the pictures again, please? And yeah, here you're talking about a very important point and perhaps a way forward from now on, the role of social media and Twitter. And you've also, you and other journalists who were fired or quit in protest have started a platform for independent journalism called P24. It's an online site. What was the reason for this?
Before getting into this, let's underline an aspect. First point is, as you saw, without a media that is not corrupt, there is no way, a corrupt media cannot cover corruption in a credible manner in any country. If media is mixed with corruption, there's no way. This shows in the case of Turkey, in other countries in Balkans as well. Point number two is a conclusion of what we are discussing. Turkey's case, the jailing of journalists have become a downhill trend. More and more people are being released. And those who were jailed were almost completely Kurdish colleagues, and it has to do with the Kurdish process. Now, the number is going down steadily. It's about 25, 30 out of 90. Instead, the punitive measure became, as in some Arab countries as well, to fire journalists and block rehiring of journalists. This is a new trend, and keep it in mind that not only jailings are important in measuring any country, but independence is as equally important, firings and editorial independence. And I would say that we will continue to have problems on that aspect. So that should be said in the context of this. Regarding what we are doing, most of those fired journalists are seeking their ways to a digital domain, as the public does also. Turkish public is world champions in Twitter. In terms of Twitter penetration, Turkey tops the world league. And also Facebook, top 3, top 4, according to eMarketer survey published by Financial Times. Turkey is followed by Japan and Netherlands. I don't know where the Norway is, but somewhere close, I suppose. But this shows how much the Turks need to communicate with each other, as much as how much they need to seek the information that they want to have. And this brings a lot of opportunities in this country, which is not black, which is not white, but which is somewhere in the gray area in terms of media. And maybe this will give us some new aspects, new dimensions, because also in ad revenues, we have digital slice geometrically rising while the print is collapsing as elsewhere. So that's why we thought that we would be part of this movement, if you will. This is a small step, but we hope that it will be a big step to endorse good journalism by training young professionals on social media literacy as much as standard conventional journalism values, and also work for various projects in practice, like we did in local elections coverage, etc. So this is going to be a platform for being a bridge between abroad and Turkey in terms of cooperation, but also it will be a center field player for teaching and training journalism and monitoring Turkish media, what the Turkish media covers and uncovers, where it fails on daily basis, which we do on its English side, also is there in the internet side.
What kind of reactions have you got from it, from readers?
We have been focusing on reactions from our professionals, from our colleagues, and it's been taken as a very important step, and a lot of people seek some sort of support or they express willingness to cooperate with us, and we are happy about that.
Yavuz Baydar, thank you so much for coming here to Bergen and sharing your experience about Turkish press freedom. I wish you the best of luck in your very important work. Thank you.